For today's conversation, I want to we've talked about market research to a degree. I want to talk about market demand and understanding where your customer is in the why range. So there's four whys to market demand.
Okay, there's four. I know we've talked about three.
Yeah, the fourth one I'm adding, which doesn't apply to small business owners usually, but it does apply to larger corporations.
Okay,
So the first why is why should they be buying the product or service in the first place?
correct. Okay. Yeah. So what we think of is we say, well, is there demand for what you do, right? And the problem is that if you're doing something that somebody else is already doing, to some degree you can measure the market demand. And if there's a lot of people that want something, I'm thinking of like scrapbooking
Okay.
when it was the in thing, the rage. Uh, there were a lot of small business owners that started scrapbooking things. Other companies added scrapbooking to what they did, like Joanne Fabrics, I know.
What do you mean they added scrapbooking?
In other words, they added scrapbooking supplies, the stickers and whatnot
Okay.
that people were using. And then you had a scrapbooking multi-level marketing company because it's very much a personal thing. You know, one scrapbooker knows other scrapbookers
Yeah.
is the idea. And that was their concept, is that we can sell scrapbooking supplies to people who know other people who do scrapbooking
Okay.
or who want to do scrapbooking. And so this thing just kind of mushroomed. But then everybody had their scrapbooks done. I don't know what happened to grandma. You know, she ran out of pictures or something.
It went digital.
Yeah, or it went digital. And between the two, scrapbooking kind of started to crush back down. I mean, I'm sure there's still people who are ardent about it, and that's their life, and they're really, into that. But they're a very small segment now.
Yeah.
And I'm just noticing fewer and fewer supplies in various places that we're carrying them, fewer and fewer businesses that actually exclusively provide things for scrapbookers, and that whole marketplace just kind of shrank down.
Yeah.
So the question is where are you? You know, what I mean, are you doing something that again is something that already knows, or are you doing something new and innovative that no one's ever heard of?
Yeah. And
And
so yeah, I think that's a really good point. Or are you doing something that's dying out of fashion too?
yes,
Right? That would be the other question.
yeah, because a lot of people get in on the trend, they get in on the top, and they get all excited, and then by the time they execute on their business, it's 2-3 years later, and that might 2-3 years might have been the end of that trend.
Right. And so understanding, yeah, I mean, and that's a great example, I think, of that first why of like, why do they want the product? Why do they need the product? And does that matter? Because if it doesn't matter, if you know everyone wants what you're offering, right? Or, it is in high demand, then it's only a matter of where's the supply not available,
Exactly.
right? And if you can go where the supply is not available, the demand's still there, it's an easy sell. It's an
Exactly.
easy win. Marketing becomes much more about, hey, here's what I have to offer, and you can get your sales. It's super simplistic.
Yes.
That it goes into that whole adage of find a need, fill a need. And
Yes.
that's literally what it becomes.
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay. So the second why, which is why you, is also like a stage that a lot of people get into because most people aren't innovatives in a market. They're not a brand new option, right? Or a brand new market that they're
Correct.
creating.
Correct.
And most people, I don't think, are so focused on the market's dying. So they're usually starting a business and there's competition. So the question becomes from a consumer, why you?
Correct. Because if there's 5 other businesses that they can buy the same service from, I'm thinking, plumbers, windows, siding, you
Yeah.
know, generally you've got 5 to 10 in any uh, general metropolitan area.
Yeah.
And even outside of that, I mean, you have to go way out to where you really don't have anybody. There's maybe one guy or one or two people that are your only choices.
Right.
And then, like in the building trades, the other thing you have is you have handymen
Yep.
who, the handyman that fixed your door, that fixed the lock, that replaced the lock on your door. I mean, the same guy will sell you windows, will sell you siding, will sell you
Yep.
other ancillary services. And so now all of a sudden you've got all these people that you're fighting with. And the question is why would I choose your business over this other business that I've already maybe done business with? There or this other business that's advertising
Yeah.
consistently that I'm seeing their name everywhere.
No, absolutely.
One of the things I think about is like Home Depot. Okay. So
Okay.
like here in Oregon, we have what's the plumbing company across the street?
George Moreland.
George Moreland. You have George Moreland Plumbing. Now, and this is depressing. George Moreland Plumbing sells their supplies, as best I can tell from people, at less than Home Depot. Okay? But
Okay.
people will still go to Home Depot over George Moreland.
Mm.
And they've kind of moved their business now to be the contractors is who they supply, but they're actually a better deal than Home Depot. But Home Depot has spent so much money on advertising and branding, and you see them everywhere,
Yep.
and you hear them on TV, and that they're now the ones to choose rather than George Moreland, who's a local company who's selling things for the same price or less.
That's crazy. No, I think that's great, and we'll get. I kind of want to go back and we'll talk about a little bit more detail on like some of the marketing strategies behind each of those. But let's move on to the next one. I think that's a great example for that. Really great example. So for the next one, which is Why Now?
And this is the hard one. This is the one I've always struggled with because I feel like I'm ready to provide the service. I'm ready. Now's a great time. But customers have different opinions.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like the lower the price of the item, or at least the more of a transaction that the
The
item
more
seems to be.
transactional it is. Yeah, I think that's a better way to put it.
The more you can succeed with just basic selling.
Yeah.
Where the higher the product is, or the more of a experience it is. Like even like don't think of like siding. You think of siding as a transactional thing, but they're going to be doing siding for several days on your house.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of money.
Yep.
And so with that, that's a larger thought process. That's a larger, longer buying process. You know, re-roofing somebody's house.
Yep.
It's a longer buying process. You know, you should get 2 or 3 quotes. Well, that could take 4 weeks. And if you were the first one,
Yep.
you got to wait 4 weeks till they work through that process. And that's something that a lot of times business owners don't really fully, I think, understand or appreciate.
Yeah.
As well as, of course, there are things that you can do to shorten those processes. Because again, we keep talking about market research always to people, and every time it seems like every topic we go back to market research. But if you go back to market research and you know what these people really want, and you really understand it deeply and sincerely, and you understand their personal motivations for doing things, it becomes a lot easier to reduce that time.
Yeah.
Rather than going through a whole bunch of, well, this is what they told me they wanted. Well, they might have told you that, but you have to understand that they really have an underlying, what's the real underlying desire for that? What's the real underlying?
Well, and I want to say though too, I think some of this too, as far as like the Why Now, would also go into like some of the seasonal stuff.
That's a good point. Yeah, seasonal is something everybody
Right?
always thinks of.
Like
Yes.
when you're hot and it's the middle of summer, selling ice cream super easy, right? Like you're gonna sell a ton of ice cream.
Yes.
You don't have to do a lot of work. You just have to let people know you exist.
Right.
But come wintertime, how do you create a sense of urgency to buy now when it's not the prime time? It's not the prime season, right? Or people who do landscaping, right? How do you convince people that during the middle of winter, when it's raining all the time and they don't enjoy their plants and they don't enjoy their lawn, that they should still maintain it?
Correct.
That's that's when it like really that question becomes really valuable to a lot of business owners.
Correct. That's something that a lot of seasonal businesses, they make a lot of money in the summer or winter, whichever case it is. But then those in between times, it becomes tough.
Yeah.
And so normally, I know a lot of businesses just simply have a completely different business. So they have 2 businesses that run in each season.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's one way around it. But some of it is also how do you build a demand that carries.
Yeah. Well, that's some. Yeah. I mean, we'll get, like I said, we'll get back into like the specifics of it. I just kind of want to touch briefly on all of them. And then the last why, which is one that we haven't talked about, that I've come to the conclusion, this fourth why, I don't think is talked about enough, purely from the fact that I think most small business owners, it doesn't apply as a major worry or concern that they should have. But as you grow and scale, it should become more and more of a concern, and it should always be considered at every size. And that is, why should your customer feel good about the purchase?
I think that actually transcends the size of your business. I mean, I think people need to always be
I agree.
very much aware of that, and that's why a lot of companies that I feel like when I look at what they do and I say, why would anybody buy
Yeah.
that? Because they've taken that one why and really capitalized on it. They've been able to build an incredible business. You know, that's the restaurant you go to is what we're talking about is the restaurant you go to just because you like the art on the walls or the atmosphere that's there.
Yeah.
And you're going for something that's special and unique, that's different, that you can't get anywhere else.
Well, that, but also think of it in the sense of like, how do you ensure that they feel good about the purchase they made after they made the purchase? And that's really where like that why comes down to. And and just so people understand where it's coming from, there's a show called Mad Men. I don't suggest it because there's a bunch of waste of time stuff in it, but there were some good stuff in it from a marketing perspective that I liked. And one of the things they talked about with cigarettes back in the 60s is that the question and the concern they had was, how do we make people feel good about their purchase of cigarettes when Reader's Digest and some of these other health magazines were coming out with like, oh, the harmful effects of cigarettes? How do we still get people to feel good about their purchase? And when you start looking at some of these larger corporations marketing, a lot of their marketing really is geared more around that. It's geared more around the post-purchase mindset than necessarily why you should buy their product.
Correct.
Right? Like I think of Coca-Cola or Starbucks. It's not about what you get out of it. It's about feeling good because of the post-action stuff that you get, the interactions you have and stuff. It has nothing to do with what their product tastes like, smells like, does, anything like that. It's all about feeling good about post-purchase. And it's a very powerful why, I think.
It's a very powerful why, and unfortunately, it's been abused. As it was, you talk about, I mean, just pick cigarettes, right? A great place that has been abused.
Yeah.
But I feel like it can also be used for good and should be used for good.
Yeah.
I mean, it should be a way for us to build relationships with customers and really propel them forward.
But I think for certain industries specifically that are more in the why you phase, I think putting a more focus on that could be really beneficial.
I think so too.
Right?
Yes.
Like I think of like the hotel industry, right? Which we'll go through them, I guess, here in a second. But like just real quick, I think of the hotel industry and I go like, you're a hotel. There's only so much you could do.
Well,
that separates you from the other hotels.
You would think until you had until they sold out the Ritz-Carlton.
Okay, I mean, I've never been there. Okay. I've heard stories of it, but I've never.
So the Ritz-Carlton, just so you know, before they sold out to Marriott, every employee had $1,000 they could spend on a guest to meet a need.
Oh, I did not know that part.
Yes.
Okay.
So you come in and you have wheels broken on your luggage. There's a good chance at the Ritz-Carlton that you could get them fixed without asking anyone.
Gotcha.
If you need them fixed, simply somebody realizing that they need to be fixed, and we'll go down to the local hardware store or wherever.
Yeah.
And get you some new wheels for your luggage.
Okay. So maybe some higher end stuff you can do it, but there's not a lot as a general statement. There's not a lot to differentiate hotels.
It's small stuff. It's small stuff. It's the aesthetics in the lobby. It's the
Oh, I agree. No, I agree.
I
agree. It's small stuff, but I'm saying it from like a generalized perspective, right?
Well, what's happened is one person came out with an innovation that was really great, created a great customer
everyone
experience,
copies it so quickly,
and then everybody else has got to now do that.
Yeah. The copy realm is so quick.
I mean, I remember pools. You don't remember pools.
As far as before there were pools in
No,
hotels?
no hotels had pools.
Yeah, see, I've never
Hotels never had pools.
I've only been
I
in
mean,
maybe
maybe,
one
yeah,
hotel without a pool.
yeah, maybe some really high-end hotels
Sure.
um, had pools, but for the most part, no hotels had pools. And then somebody put a pool in, and now everybody's got to have a pool. Somebody put a fitness center in, now everybody has to have a fitness center.
So, it sounds about right.
Yeah. And so there's a lot of things that were innovative that
Yeah.
improved customer experience. And now because one has them, everybody has to have it.
But that makes it difficult. But that's why to me, like if you can focus on the like why you should feel good about your purchase, then it becomes almost like Coke and Pepsi in that blind taste test I talked to you about, where it's like I see the can of Coke, Coke tastes better. I don't see the can of Coke and it's a blind taste test, Pepsi tastes better. Like there's a psychological effect you can have on people's brains to where you literally will react differently because of the feeding that you've received in your brain to associate with that brand.
Correct.
And to me, that's something that is really powerful if you think about it.
It is. It is. And hotels are a great place to see that. Look at your different hotels, look at the price that you pay, and look at their lobbies.
Yeah.
Just walk in the lobby and look around and see how much you can almost price the hotel by the lobby because
Yeah.
there's specific types of lobbies, types of carpet, types of decorations,
Yeah.
etc. that you're going to have in one hotel chain,
Yeah.
and you're going to have entirely different look in a more upscale chain, depending on who they're trying to appeal to.
Yeah. No, that's true.
And so, as we talk all the time about, psychographics of your customer, this is where those psychographics are just, you have to have those.
Yeah.
I mean, this, so many people skip psychographics because it's hard, it's painful, it just doesn't make sense. You got to ask a lot of questions. It takes time, and you feel like you're kind of running in place. But those psychographics are what allow you to say, oh, if they do this, they will have this incredible experience.
Yeah.
I think of my one person who does Airbnbs.
Yeah.
Okay. So Airbnb is telling her that she should be charging $85 a night. She charges $300 a night. And on the weekends where she's only got like 2 days that she could have because of the way cleaning and all falls out, she charges $400 or $500 for those 2 nights.
Yeah.
Well, what's the difference between her Airbnb and all the other Airbnbs? She's thought of everything that you would run into or want or need when you're traveling. What kind of soap? Where do you want the soap? What kind of towels?
Yeah.
What types of amenities? I know in some of her places, she actually has a bottle of wine there, and it's a very specific type of wine.
Yeah.
To greet you with, for depending on what your situation is,
right?
Because you know whether this is family or a couple or whatever, and the amenities change depending on who's renting it next. And so you have the amenities and the things that somebody like that with kids or whatever would naturally possibly forget, right? The things they would forget, the things that they expect in a good quality space, and then the unexpected. What are the nice little things that I wish I had but I didn't have?
Gotcha.
I think of chocolates or maybe some cookies.
Yeah.
The simple little things, but they take that whole experience and they totally transform it, and they make it memorable and they make it valuable.
Right. No, yeah, it makes that difference.
Rather than just getting $85 a night for a roof over my head.
Right. No, it's understanding who you're appealing to, I think, right? Again, right? Who you're appealing to and everything. I love that. So let's break down kind of marketing strategies for each, because for each of those whys, there's a very different marketing strategy and approach that you're going to want to have for the, campaign, the, in-store stuff, the social media stuff. It's going to be very different for each of those, depending on where you are and where your customers are in that process.
Correct. I mean, there is overlap. Don't get us wrong. There's a lot of overlap. We live with overlap, but there's still
But generalized brand strategy needs to, like, if you've got, if general brand strategy is one aspect, right? And you want to answer the question for a general brand. And I want to make this real quick because this is really important for companies to understand. There's general brand strategy and general brand marketing. General brand marketing and strategy, if you have one product and that's your only product, it's simple because that's all you need, right? It's simple. But if you have multiple products or if you have new products coming in, then you should have a general brand strategy and then a different strategy for each of those products theoretically, because each of those products is going to appeal to either a different market segment or a different dynamic psychographically of that market segment. And it's not going to be the same as the brand. And you need to be aware of that. I mean, Nike's not going to go and sell the exact same ad for running shoes that they're going to sell for basketball shoes. It just wouldn't make sense. That would be ridiculous for them to do that. And so you need to understand for your own business how that works and applies.
Correct.
Um,
But the other piece that's also a part of that is that I was just thinking of as you were talking was the concept, as soon as I can get it back to me, of I lost it. You have to just cut this piece out.
but yeah, so that's my thought at least.
Yeah. Oh, I know. I was going to say Procter and Gamble.
Okay, great.
Okay, Procter and Gamble is the ultimate king. You need to study Procter and Gamble if you want to know the ideal of branding. Okay, so Procter and Gamble has all kinds of companies, but they keep their brands in silos. They keep
Yep.
them totally separated. I mean, they can even have competition with themselves. They do such a good job, and they've made huge amounts of money because they know that this brand is the leader in this area, or this brand is maybe the number 2 brand in
Yep.
this area, trying to be the number 1 brand in this area. And so even though they're all part of Procter and Gamble, the same physical plant may make all these different products. As far as their marketing goes, every one of those products is a completely separate company.
Yep. Yeah. No, absolutely. I'll ask you this question real quick. And I apologize. This is going to be a quick sidebar question because you brought them up. They are incredibly famous in the marketing realms. Like from like the 60s, 70s up until about the early 2000s, it looks like.
Mhm.
From what, like, the materials I'm reading. Like,
Yep.
maybe 90s, I guess, would probably be better. Early 2000s, they seem to have died off in, like,
No.
people's excitement of
Well,
them,
the excitement has died off because we had social media and all this online
which
stuff.
they didn't get into.
Right.
That's
But
why I
they-
say
but-
they fell off the map as being
Right.
like this great company. But from the 60s to the 90s,
Mhm.
right? Like 2000 basically, right? From 1960 to 2000, we'll say, right? They are heavily talked about in shows and textbooks and, freaking just books.
Yeah.
What were they doing during that time? Because that's before me.
Right.
So what were they doing during that time frame that made them that famous to such a wide breadth of people? Because nowadays you could ask a kid on the street, and I almost guarantee you they wouldn't even know what P&G was.
Right.
If you said, "Hey, who's P&G?" or if you said, "Hey, do you know who Procter and Gamble is?" they wouldn't have a clue. I can almost guarantee you.
Right.
Right. Like Procter and Gamble at this point, the only products that I'm aware of that they sell directly to people are basically businesses. They don't have any direct to consumer branded products.
Sure they do.
Not that are Procter and Gamble
Yes.
branded. Really? What?
Well, not Procter and Gamble branded.
Yeah, that's
no.
what I'm saying.
No,
Like
right,
I'm saying
right.
Procter and Gamble branded products.
Right,
They don't have
right,
any
Right.
that say Procter and Gamble
right.
that are in an individual's
Correct.
house.
Procter
You
and
can't go to
Gamble
Walmart.
in the 60s realized that, we understand, Procter and Gamble started out with soap. I forget what
Yep.
the exact thing was, but it was soap. So Procter and Gamble had the Procter and Gamble brand of soap.
Yep.
And then they did so well, they bought other brands. But when they bought other brands, they never brought them under Procter and Gamble.
Right. They kept it
In
separate.
other words, corporate wise and back end wise, Procter and Gamble was Procter and Gamble, and all these companies got flowed into that. But as far as the public knew, there was no Procter and Gamble, and Procter and Gamble went from putting a big seal on their products because that's how you knew it was good because it was Procter and Gamble, to having a smaller and smaller, and now you'll see a little Procter and Gamble symbol on other brands they make.
I think it's on like the writing, like the lettering, or not the
They
writing,
try
but
to
the
hide it.
writing. Yeah,
They try to hide it.
you have to
Yes.
look for it very
Yes, they
heavily.
try to hide it intentionally because what they realized is differentiated or die. Each of those brands has a specific market segment, and they're known for that market segment. When you put multiple brands together, or I do 8 different things. So instead of doing just chiropractic,
Yeah,
I'm a health center.
yeah,
Health center. Think about those words. Chiropractic. What is the picture in your mind? It's a very clear,
office
very
chair.
specific type of service, right?
Yep.
When you say health
Center, it's very broad.
center, now I'm saying, what do you do?
Yeah.
What services could I get there? Would I get there? I have no idea what I'm going to get.
Or do I care
Right.
about all the other
Right.
services? Yeah.
So what happens is a lot of brands say, well, we'll just make more money. And one of the best examples of that is Miller Lite.
Okay.
So you had Miller
The beer
Beer.
company?
Yeah. So
Okay.
you had Miller Beer. And then they, instead of creating a separate light beer and creating it in its own little silo,
Yep.
they created Miller Lite. So they took Miller customers and said, hey, you may also want this light beer. And sales took off. It was great. They were branded together. There was connection between the two. Everything was wonderful. And then remember what we were just talking about earlier about how things spike up and then they tend to drop down because everybody's got to have it because it's new. And then it's like, then you settle down to the people that
actually really care about that and have the money for it. Yep.
That's what happened to Miller Lite. And so what happened is Miller sales went down a little bit during the spike.
Right.
And they said, we've got all this money. Now, if you take Miller sales and you take Miller Lite sales and you put them together, you get what Miller sales were. So what happens is you actually shrink your brand.
Yeah.
By not segmenting these. So if they, instead of being Miller Lite, so for a good example of that is Coke made Tab. Tab is still sold. It still exists. That was their sugar-free cola.
Okay, I'm not aware of Tab.
Yeah. So instead of sugar-free Coke, there's Tab.
Okay.
And that's what they originally did. And Tab took off. And Tab even today still exists.
Right.
Because it's so focused, as you know what Tab is. It's a sugar-free cola.
Right.
I know what that is, rather than when I have multiple things that kind of are the same.
Right.
So when you talk about having multiple products in your business, you need to try to figure out, are these things really the same thing and just variations? So like, for instance, if I sell a boat, okay, and I sell outboard motors for boats that go on my boat, that makes sense, okay, because now I'm selling the whole boat.
Right.
And if I sell fishing rods that go on the boat because it's a fishing boat.
Right.
Or I sell water skis because you can use this boat for water skiing.
But I mean, really, right? But
you know what I'm saying?
What you're talking about is finding the right upsells and the right
it's
cross sells.
Exactly, those become upsells and cross sales. And what happens is people start building brands when they start building stuff, especially if you're manufacturing, and they say, well, we can build this. Well, we can also do this over here, and we'll just put it all into the same thing, call it the same name, and they don't realize that they're diluting.
But sometimes you're growing. But I mean, I think of like the Bass Pros or the Cabela's who do that, and they do very well because it becomes a one-stop shop for anything in the outdoors realm.
Correct. But notice that who bought who and what happened. So Bass Pro started by selling boats, fishing boats.
I don't know I don't know Bass Pro's history.
Bass Pro's history is they sold fishing boats.
Okay.
Then they had to sell motors for fishing boats. Then they had to sell fishing rods for fishing boats.
Okay.
And because they were fishing and because everybody thinks of hunting and fishing,
right,
they added
those
hunting.
Correlate.
Right, they added hunting. Okay. Cabela's was focused on hunters.
Okay.
Okay. Cabela's was specifically a hunting shop. Okay, that was their thing. That's all they cared about is hunting gear, camo and guns and everything associated with hunting.
Okay.
All right. And so both of them grew. They both ended up trying to grow into each other's niches or strengths.
Right.
Okay. But if you look at a Bass Pro Shop, you will see more space dedicated to boats and
And
boating
fishing,
and
for
fishing
sure.
versus a Cabela's where most of their shop is hunting.
Right. Much more, yeah, Cabela's is definitely much more hunting
Right.
focused
And a lot
than
more, and the
shipping.
fishing even tends to be fishing rods that you would use from the shore to fish for whatever.
Right. Well, and they're
Versus,
not selling boats at, you know, Cabela's, whereas Bass Pro Shop has
yeah,
boats.
and Bass Pro was getting into boats.
Yeah. Or at least they used to
Yeah,
have boats. I don't know if
yeah,
they still do.
yeah,
It's been
yeah.
a while since I've been to one,
But
but anyway,
but anyhow, so two different sides that added something that they probably shouldn't have. So if Bass Pro had just focused on fishing, there's a good chance they would actually be bigger than what they are now.
not necessarily, because where they went, there weren't hunting stores specifically.
Right,
Where,
and
I mean, that's where they
interesting.
tried to locate their stores, was like their, like if you had a Bass Pro and a Cabela's next to each other, I think to your point you'd be correct. I think because Bass Pro Shop is putting their locations where there's not a Cabela's and there's not another large hunting store, they get away with it because there's just not another option.
Exactly.
Um,
And so now they become the outdoors shop.
and it kind of goes into that whole thing of supply and demand, right? If there's demand and you can be the sole supplier, you're set.
Yes.
If another competition shows up though to be able to supply, you may be out of business. I mean, and that
Yeah.
we've seen that happen plenty of times where
Correct.
you're the sole supplier, you do great, competition shows up and you don't exist anymore.
Exactly.
Right?
But back to my point is, so Procter and Gamble's big thing, and they've used it and they're still using it. Of every brand is its own world.
Yeah.
Every brand is its own brand, and we're not going to talk about Procter and Gamble at all.
Right.
We're going to talk about that brand as if it's its own company, even though
It's all under
money wise and everything else, and it's under Procter and Gamble. And then you have a team of people that are dedicated to that particular brand.
Right.
So the beauty of it is for Procter and Gamble is they can roll a company in, eliminate all the overhead, all the accounting, all the order taking, and all of that, roll it right into their stuff,
Right.
their system that they already have in place, and all they need is people to make sure that that brand is fighting for its life against everybody else.
Mm.
And because of that focus, and because all the advertising now for that brand is just that brand, just that one item,
Right.
it's so focused that when you say that item, you think of that brand. You don't think of Procter and Gamble and you say, well, which are the, or like Kraft is the alternative. Okay. When you think of Kraft, people think cheese.
Mac and
because
cheese, yep.
That's what they started with, was cheese. But they make salad dressing. We have Kraft salad dressing all the time.
Yep.
They make a whole bunch of other products. And the problem is now Kraft doesn't mean cheese so much to hit people.
I still think it means mac and cheese because that's what they've advertised the most.
Yeah. But they've got so many different things that they do, where if each of those things was in a separate silo, they would probably sell more.
So I want to say, to your point, I think we slightly disagree on this point a little bit. I think if your brand can be geared towards a psychographic that covers all of it, then you're set. But it needs to be able to set itself up as the psychographic for all of that. And your market segment, whoever your market segment is, it needs to be something that market segment buys everything that brand is associated with. I would say that's the key. Is it needs to be however you define your market segment. Everyone in that market segment, or the vast majority of that market segment, right, above 70%, would buy everything you're offering under that brand. That's how I would define it.
Right. And my only caveat to that would be is that the things things need to be distinct.
No, I know. I understand your point of things need to be distinct.
And what I'm saying is, as long as you can keep distinctness, I would agree with you.
No, I understand your point on distinctness. Here's my thing: is I've seen YouTubers make this work really well for them.
Okay.
I'll give you one example: is like Teaching Men's Fashion. I think Teaching Men's Fashion, something like that. Jose Zuniga has a YouTube channel.
Okay.
And he's been able to make a lot of money by offering everything that a teenage man would want to be able to be a man. So he offers T-shirts, gym workout clothes, cologne. He's got like his Manscaped razor. He's got a couple other things. right, as well. But it's all things related to like this is how you want to dress, look, and feel and think like if you want to be like a high valued man. And that's kind of the psychographic he's kind of pulling around is like how do you become a high valued man? And then providing everything that you would need to be able to create that. And so being able to have that brand association of like, if I buy something that Jose endorses, I know it's meant for me to be a high valued man is very valuable in my opinion. I mean, it'd be just
Okay,
like if
okay.
you know, for a market segment, right? If you went, hey, Cadillac's the business executive's car, and that was your entire focus, then literally you could sell business executive suits and business executive, you know, I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like I would do
Yeah.
pairings with like Indochino and say, hey, business executives have custom suits and they also drive custom cars. And I would do, you know, a collaboration with, you know, someone who does like unique cufflinks, right? Or unique watches. And I would literally make a brand of this is the business executive look. Does that make sense? So whether you're a business executive or you want to be a business executive, this is how you should look. This is what you should drive. This is what you should be. And to me, you could then have a bunch of random stuff all under one brand name. But you need to have a well-defined market segment that the vast majority of that market segment would want everything that you're going to offer.
Right.
That
Okay.
would be the caveat on
Right.
how I would throw it.
Right. And so what we're talking about is actually two different things.
Okay.
So what you're talking about is a brand that appeals to a specific type of person.
Yes. Civic psychographic.
Yeah. But as in general terms that most people would
Sure.
understand, a specific type of person, like you're talking
Okay.
about business executive, okay?
Yeah.
And now I have everything for the business executive. So if you identify as a business executive,
Yes.
you show up here,
Yes.
okay?
Exactly.
All right. So that's one type of branding.
Yeah.
What I'm talking about is the company that manufactures something and they produce a product, they make it into the marketplace, it excels, they're doing good,
Yeah.
they're happy, they're excited, and now they're going to build something else that is they could still build with the same machinery, but it's for a different market segment.
Right, but here would be my question: are you talking about making two different chainsaws? Or are you talking about making a chainsaw and a wood chopper?
I'm talking about further apart. I'm talking about somebody who makes chainsaws, and because they have small motors, they're now going to make weed whackers.
Right, and that works just fine.
And in my mind,
no, I'll give you a company that will change your opinion on that. Craftsman.
Okay, well, Craftsman doesn't exist anymore.
But Craftsman back in the day, and I know you know this because you had a Craftsman back in the day, or your parents did, I should say.
Correct. We bought lots of Craftsman stuff.
Right, like
in the day.
Yeah. No, I agree in the day, but like they had everything, all under the Craftsman brand, and they did incredibly well.
Right, because Craftsman
incredibly like better than DeWalt, better than Milwaukee.
But
they were the
yes. But understand what happened there is Craftsman meant quality. It's just like Zenith used to mean quality until a Taiwanese company bought them.
Yeah, no, I'm aware.
Okay, Zenith's big thing on TV
I'm
was
not aware of
always
Zenith, but
okay. Here's what Zenith's tagline was: "The quality goes in before the name goes on," and that was true. Zenith and Heath. There were two companies that were yeah.
I want to steal that now.
The quality goes in before the name goes on, and Zenith and RCA TVs were the most reliable TVs you could get.
We are going to
and
have
you
to
paid
steal that.
extra for those.
Okay,
because again, the quality went in before the name went on. If you wanted a TV and you wanted to be reliable, you didn't have to worry about it breaking. You bought.
That's crazy. That's cool. That's okay. But Craftsman was like that though. It was known as the quality tool for the house.
Correct. It became a measure of quality. But what I'm talking about is when you build separate things, if you put each of them in a separate silo, they can fight all the other weed whackers, all the other chainsaws.
But what I'm saying is that Craftsman didn't need to. They just literally put their brand on it and people knew quality and they bought it anyway. I mean, when I worked at Sears, right? I worked there for 3 years almost, right? 2.5, a little bit over 2 years. Literally, there were people that would come in, mainly older people, but they would come in and they literally just wanted a Craftsman. That's all they cared about.
Right. Because
where Craftsman screwed themselves, in my opinion, is they made 1,000 different motors, mowers, right? I mean, not really, but they made a bunch of different mowers. And they made a bunch of different chainsaws, a bunch of different weed whackers, and it then went from Craftsman makes quality tools to what am I like what's quality now?
Good. Now you
That's where they screwed up.
but now
Is
you
they made multiple differentiations without differentiating like what was different.
correct. And again, now you're
That's
back
when they
on my
should.
side.
No. I'm not back on your side. I'm saying Craftsman did the right job making multiple products. What they made the bad job of was making variations of a product. As in, if you're going to have a low value product, a middle tier product, and a high value product, those should all be separate priced. And those should all be separate branded, not under the same brand. Because a brand for a high value customer market segment is different than the value for a cheap market segment customer. That's my point. And that's why I say it goes back to the market segment, and you need to define your market segment and go, would they buy this other stuff as well? If your market segment's not buying 4 mowers. Do you know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
your market segment's not going to buy a cheap mower and a high expensive mower.
Right.
They buy one mower. So which mower are they going to buy? That's a brand. Which mower are these people going to buy? That's a brand. Does that make sense? And that's how you should be doing it. That's why I say it should be done by your brands, in my experience, in my opinion, that I've seen, should be done by market segments, not by necessarily specific like things, if that makes sense. I would gear it much towards it's a market segment, and they're saying this is my defined market segment. What would they buy? And everything they buy, I want to be able to provide.
So, do you understand what he's saying? Is what he's saying is if I want quality, I bought Craftsman.
Yeah. And that's how it should
And
have
so
been.
I want a quality mower, I just go buy a Craftsman.
And it's going to be $400. It's
And
$400.
I don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
Okay?
Absolutely.
So understand what's going on here is quality was the psychographic that I'm buying.
Yes.
And so the easy way to buy this psychographic is to buy something that's named whatever.
Absolutely. And I sold so many pro mowers just because of that. Like because these people would come in and I'm like, dude, I don't know about the quality of these ones because like they're kind of cheap quality, right? That's why they're cheaper. But this pro one, like that's your quality. Like that's the Craftsman quality that they've stood behind is this pro one. And people would eat it up and they bought it.
Known,
right? And I didn't even have to try. It wasn't even a hard sell, right? It was just literally like, you want Craftsman quality. This is true Craftsman quality. This other stuff is their Chinese knockoff that they should have rebranded as something different. And people understood that. And people recognized that. And so to me, like that's how I look at it. Is it's like,
yeah,
you know, like
correct. But and at the same time, you're agreeing with my thing is that again, if you're going to do a different thing, the question is are you selling to the exact same person?
Yeah.
But most of the time when people start producing another product,
sometimes
it's a different segment.
Depends on the company. That's why I'm saying it depends on the company.
Most of the time, it's a different segment. It's
Yeah.
either a lower pricing segment, a higher pricing segment, or a completely different group of people. Which there's nothing wrong with different group of people. There's nothing wrong with that. Just put it in its own brand.
Yeah, I agree.
Put it in its own silo and let it sit over there, and you can have all the same accounting on the back end. But as far as the front end and who answers the phone. They're two completely separate companies. They have nothing to do with each other. They don't even know who the other one is.
No, I agree. From a consumer facing perspective, that's how you should have it. Is that the two don't associate themselves together.
Correct.
I would agree 100%.
And that in that way, that you can focus on that segment is that this is the name to know.
Yeah.
And for this one over here, this is the name to know.
No, I agree. Yeah, absolutely, I agree. But I just was defining it as market segments versus you, I feel like was a little bit more generalized.
Well, I'm doing more generalized because I see so many companies trying to do the Miller Lite thing.
Yeah.
We got Miller beer. You're already buying beer. Hey, we got this other kind of beer.
Right.
And then we got Miller Dark. We're going to do.
Right, but some of that, but I will say to your point, right, some of that's also though how you do it.
It is.
Right? And I hate that this is going to end up being a whole podcast about just different companies, but I'm going to give Victoria's Secret as a great example.
Okay.
How did Victoria's Secret change the game in the women's underwear and lingerie market?
By appealing to men.
Right.
And finding a way to get men into the store.
To come into the store and buy.
Right.
That changed the entire, and I know you were around for that transition.
Yeah. Those of you who don't know, if the husbands bought the wife's underwear, they would buy more than the wife would buy. And the wife was always thinking, well, this is too much, or how am I going to justify this to him? But if he bought it, everything's fine.
Yeah.
And so that's what we're talking about is this weird psychographic that nobody except for Victoria's Secret has kind of
push the
found a
males
way to do
into
it.
trying to make it to where the males want to go buy the lingerie or want to be a part of that process. That was never a thing.
Yeah.
And to me, Victoria's Secret did an incredible job of doing that. They grew a whole new realm of stuff that just did not exist. I mean, pre that time,
Yes.
men did not go buy lingerie for their wives.
Right.
That wasn't a thing.
Right.
Men were not a part of that process. Men did not care about that
Mhm.
process. It was just whatever.
Right.
And Victoria's Secret brought in the male demographic, but they didn't lose their female demographic either. And I think the key there was just the way that they did it.
Correct.
Right. I
Right.
mean, and so to your point, if Miller Lite or Miller had said, hey, Miller Lite is for your wife, or Miller Lite is for your, your buddy who works out with you, so you both can enjoy a Miller, that would have grown the market segment theoretically, versus the way they approached it sounds like was like, hey, if you like this, then you'll like this also. But you're not going to drink more beer.
No.
Like you drink a 6-pack, you drink a 6-pack, you drink a 12-pack, you drink a 12-pack. You're not going to drink, you're not going to double the amount of beer you drink because of whatever.
Right. You're not going to make half of it this and half of it
Yeah.
that.
And so I think if they had defined it better as like, hey, this is for this group, this is for this type of person, so buy this for them, then you get them to buy it for the parties, for the events, for the camping trips, etc. And then now those friends become buyers of Miller Lite versus a different, beer option.
Right.
But I just want to throw that out there. I think you can grow your market segment under the same name. You just need to make sure that you associate why and how.
Right. And
how those market segments coincide
right,
with each other.
Right. But what people say is, I'm a chiropractor. If I add massage, that's kind of similar. Okay, so that's good.
Sure.
Okay, but now I want to add a medical doctor.
But here's the problem: is I think massage is even those two, right?
Yeah.
From a consumer's perspective, how many consumers would view those as the same thing versus view those as entirely different business models and different business goals and like outcomes that you desire?
It depends.
Because when I think massage, I think like relaxing, I think sauna, I think spa.
Right. And
when I think chiropractor, I think like getting my back fixed,
right.
getting,
and for me, I think of
realigned.
massage as another way, an alternative to chiropractic or another way to do pain relief.
Right, but is it a cheaper way? Is it just a different way? Do you know what I'm saying? Like you'd have to understand those psychographics before you could even add that as an option and have it make sense. And you'd have to understand, do your current customers or potential customers around you, how do they really view those two? Because they may go, oh, well, this is just a cheaper way to get it done. And that's what they care about with the massage. So then it's like, if you're not cheaper, you're wasting your energy offering it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So like it's really understanding. It goes back to understanding that consumer behavior, I feel like.
Yeah. No, I agree. And these are all the kind of conversations that no one wants to have.
Give me just a second.
Did we run over? Did I mess up?
No.
I was trying to be short.
This thing. Yeah, a little off topic. This thing's